Imagine two neighbors living on the exact same street who both go out and purchase the exact same brand new electric vehicle. This chart shows the daily running costs for those two drivers, and the difference is immediate. One driver pays just 7 pence per kilometer to keep their car charged, while the other pays a steep 26 pence per kilometer for the exact same energy. That massive price gap comes down entirely to where they park at night. The driver paying 7 pence has a private driveway, while the driver paying 26 pence relies completely on public curbside chargers. Because of that single logistical detail, the economic viability of owning an EV splits in two, determined entirely by housing status. That divide is now widening. Prime Minister Burnham recently introduced a cost of living policy that slashes the value-added tax on household electricity from 5% down to 0%. Looking at this bar chart, we can quantify exactly what that 0% rate means for EV owners. Someone charging at home will now save nearly £900 annually compared to what they would spend filling up a traditional petrol car. But roughly 33% of UK households completely lack off-street parking. They have no driveway, no private garage, and no way to plug a car directly into their home electricity supply. By eliminating the tax for domestic users while leaving public infrastructure untouched, a policy designed to ease the cost of living actively supercharges a geographic and economic penalty known as the pavement tax. The pavement tax exists because of a specific bureaucratic classification. According to the UK tax code, electricity flowing into a public street charger is treated as a commercial business supply. This flow map illustrates how that classification triggers a massive tax penalty. While domestic electricity now routes to homeowners at 0% VAT, public infrastructure gets hit with a heavy 20% tax rate because it travels through a business. Charge point operators run on tight margins, meaning they cannot absorb that 20% hit. The burden is passed directly down to the end consumer every time they plug in on the street. The result is an engineered two-tier motoring system. Renters, city dwellers, and lower-income households without private driveways are forced to pay a premium for the exact same electricity their neighbors get tax-free. Advocacy groups like Fair Charge, founded by the late motoring journalist Quentin Wilson, have spent years lobbying the government to equalize these rates and bring public charging VAT down to 5%. But the Treasury is facing a massive macroeconomic problem. This line graph plots the projected decline of fuel duty revenue. As combustion engines disappear from the roads, the government loses £24.5 billion in annual taxes. To plug that leaking revenue, the Treasury needs a replacement stream. The 20% VAT collected from public EV charging steps in as a replacement, projected to bring in hundreds of millions of pounds by the end of the decade. The government is aggressively defending this revenue. When a nonprofit operator called Charge My Street recently won a tax tribunal to lower its VAT rate, HM Revenue and Customs immediately filed a legal appeal to block the reduction and keep the tax at 20%. The state's need to maintain vehicular tax revenue is now in direct conflict with its environmental goals to get polluting cars off the road. Burnham's VAT cut perfectly illustrates this paradox. It successfully gives homeowners breathing room on utility bills, but completely neglects the public charging infrastructure required for mass EV adoption. That 20% premium acts as a hard financial and psychological barrier. It deters the third of the population who rely on street parking from ever trading in their petrol or diesel vehicles. Without structural reform to the cost of public charging, the UK's green energy transition faces a strict limit on how far it can go. If a transition to clean energy heavily penalizes people based on where they live, it fails to reach the mass adoption required to actually succeed. With the Treasury actively fighting in court to maintain the pavement tax, this financial inequality will only widen in the coming years. Decisions drafted in Westminster have highly specific daily impacts on local commutes, your neighborhood infrastructure, and individual wallets. To stay informed on how these national policies affect your local streets and the ongoing EV transition, visit londoner.news. Independent local journalism remains the most effective tool we have for uncovering the hidden local costs behind